You ever wonder how artists get those details in their stained glass artworks? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you the tips, tricks, and techniques I use to get some of those details. We're going to talk about overlays, different embellishments, and patina. Let's get started.
Sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell.
Welcome to the channel, where I hope to help you discover the beauty of stained glass, learn tips, tricks, and techniques so that you can create your own stained glass artworks. Now, the first area we're going to talk about in this video is overlays. And overlays are just basically copper foil laid down onto your glass and trimmed to your desired look that you are wanting to obtain with that overlay. Now, I did a previous video on overlay where I showed you the trial that I did on the Los Monos project. You can check that video out at the link above. In this Praying Angel project, we're going to do some overlay techniques on the gown, the wing, and the hand. To start off in doing the overlay technique, I like to take the pieces and put them up to the pattern and get the overlay kind of drawn out onto the piece. So I'm using a really fine tip Sharpie. There's a line that I want to obtain right here that comes down for the gown, and then right here as well. And in this particular area, I have to remember that it gets thicker and then come to a finer point. And then kind of the same thing with this area here. And then on this backside piece of this gown, there's another overlay to gain some detail as well. And the reason why you might do overlay techniques is because you want to get details without having actual breaks that would connect different areas, because you can't get this technique or can't get this look without doing this type of technique to obtain those details. Now, there's some other creases in a sense in the gown that I want to obtain. And the other one is here, which I wanted to go down just a little bit more. So there's a shorter one here and a longer one here. And then on the wing, it's kind of where everything kind of, you would think that a ribbing of a wing would come into play. So just trying to get some detail into the wing as well. And then on the hand, you'll see that you have it here. So this one you can't see through because it's a opalescent glass. So you just kind of have to do your best in eyeballing it to kind of match up with the desired look you're trying to obtain. Just to kind of, really get it to resemble looking like a hand. And then up on this area here is the facial features. So I'm actually going to take a black acrylic paint marker, fill in the eyes and for the eye, but for the mouth I will do an overlay piece here. To give it a nice curve. So now we'll actually do some foiling onto here. So one key point you want to do is ensure that you do your foiling of your overlay pieces first, and then do your foil around your edges. What that does, it actually connects the edging to your foil where your overlay is going to be, keeps it really tight to the glass. So when you come back and solder, it doesn't have a tendency to lift away or move off of your glass. So when I begin to do my overlays, I actually like to start at the end, peel some foil back, start at the very end of where I'm going to end up, and just kind of press it down, kind of in the shape that you want. But because this foil is so wide, it's really just not going to be where you're at. And then I leave a little bit off so that way it will wrap around. And it will just kind of wrap around. And when you do your edging, when you do your foil around your edges, If there's any tags sticking out from the original evenness of your foil, you can just trim it off with your X-Acto knife. So same thing here. I'll start up here. And what I'm going to end up doing is I'll end up coming back with my razor knife and trimming this foil down to the proper size. But I just start with the whole foil piece. You can actually cut the foil in half before you start if you want to. I've done that as well, but I just find it easier to get the exact detail that you're wanting is just use your razor knife and trim it off. You don't want to burnish it on yet until after you make your trimming fully. So, I mean, you burnish it on just to, you know, with your finger, just to get it to stick pretty good. So that way it doesn't move while you're making your trim cut. But after you made your trim cut, you'll come back and you'll burnish it down really well. We'll go ahead and get the rest of this pieces done, and we'll come back and we'll trim them. All right, now we're ready to go ahead and trim out our overlay pieces. I went ahead and did the edge foiling on these, so then that way they're in place and we can do our razor knife work. So I want to start out a little bit fatter here on this, and then I want to bring it to a point, but also put some curvatures in it, just trying to follow this particular creasing of the dress. So just kind of start where you think you might want it and just kind of make your way through, giving it that curvature detail that you want. And then basically take your razor knife and start to peel it back. Once you get a big enough piece up, you should be able to grab it and peel it. And then once you get to this end, get to your edge and just kind of get it creased and pull it off. So sometimes you might have a little of the adhesive left in there, but that's okay. It will wash off, but you just got to make sure you wash it off good. So now I'm going to follow the kind of the same contour that I did and bring it to almost to a point. I'm a little off my line that I had on there previously with the black magic marker, but that is okay. You can just kind of rub that off and it will all wash off. So then what you want to do is you want to take your burnishing tool. You want to burnish this down really well, just to make sure you got really good adhesion to your glass. So when you start heating up this glass, you want to make sure that it's stuck to it and it'll harden out being stuck to the glass. These are all the overlay pieces that we have. And now we'll go ahead and solder everything up. And I got my quick solder beads down. This is just to hold everything together. This is not the finished solder beads, but I wanted to get to the point of where we're going to do the overlays. So we've actually got them already fluxed, and then we will actually do our soldering right over this. So these should solder up fairly easy, depending on how much dimension you want, is the amount of solder you want to put on. So I always start off with just a little bit of solder on my tip, and then just run it along and let it bead up the way you want it to bead up, and then move on to the next piece. As you can see, you're not getting much solder on there. And it's really just, again, it's there for the detail. If you get a big pull at the edge, you can just take it and just kind of spread it out, because you're really just wanting the detail there. A lot of times you can get it just by touching it. So just like this way, I got enough, and I do that and just touch it down. And then I go over here, start, let it feed itself back to the base, and you can make your way down. And that way you're not heating up the foil too much. And just like that happened. Where you might have to try and attempt to see if you can get it to hold itself back down on the adhesion. You might get lucky and it'll hold down. With the forming of the solder while it's still warm, and then when it hardens up, it'll stay, just for the fact that it's almost like wire, so it should be okay. Okay, so now we have those overlays soldered in. Okay, we have both sides soldered now, and you can see that we have the overlays completed. We'll come back and clean this up really well and put a patina on it, and then these will have the nice details that we wanted using overlay. The next embellishment type I want to show you is using wire on your art pieces. I'm going to add some stamens onto a flower I created. When you do wire embellishments, you have to decide your length, and are you going to have some solder beads at the very tip of it, like I'm going to have on these stamens that are going to go on to this flower. So to do the stamens, you're going to want to kind of hold them down, put some flux on those areas right there, and all you're going to do is just drop some solder on top of these. So I'm just going to drop some solder and just kind of let it set up and bead up. Sometimes they want to stick off onto your wood. So here I'm just going to try and straighten this out a little bit, keeping and then I need to decide where I'm going to put these and how I want them arranged, because then I'm going to have to cut the wire to the size I want. So I think what I might do is have one stamen kind of bend around, following the contour of this flower, and decide how far up I want it. And I think I'm going to be okay with it maybe right about there. So what I'll do is I'll actually bend up just a little bit so I know where I want to cut it. Then you're able to hold it down with your pliers and just drop some solder and bead up over it. So I'll let that sit, harden up. Then I'll do my next stamen. And then we have the final stamen. So the fact that that's not flat right there, I want to flatten that out just a little bit so I'm able to get it in there. Now I'll just take a little bit of solder and bead up. over that to kind of hold it in place. And then I'll be able to bend that down just a little bit. So that gives you some dimensional look to your pieces, and that's how you add wire onto your art pieces. So now we're just going to finish up the final beads all the way across, and then this one will be complete. Now the final embellishment is actually patina. And you remember we talked about patina when we did some foiling. We talked about why it's important to choose the correct foil. So these are the different patinas, but we're going to actually use black patina on our heart project, and let's go ahead and get to it. Okay, we are going to finish out and patina the heart now, and I'm going to use some Novacan black patina for solder lead. You want to make sure that you have your piece cleaned very well. Something I do is I actually take a copper Brillo pad and I actually rough up the solder lines just so it takes the patina a little bit better. That's just something I do. Take a little bit of patina and you put it on your lines, and you'll see it will basically instantaneously start to turn black. And just get around, and I use a toothbrush here to kind of really rub it on. Some people spray it on and then rub. I find this way works best for me. As with anything in stained glass, you have to find that what works best for you and how you do your pieces. So a piece this size, I will go ahead and get the front side and the back side all at one time, and then rinse everything off at once. And I'll just kind of hold it up so it's just not sitting on the towel. I do recommend you use gloves. That way it just protects your hands. This is a chemical, so anytime you're playing around with chemicals, you usually want to have some gloves on. Now when I go rinse this off, I will actually use cold water. That is something that I have learned or seen and picked up from another artist. And when you use cold water, it actually allows the patina to set in on your solder lines a lot better. Don't know exactly why, but it just does. So that's what I use. So now I'll go over and rinse it off. So now that's the black patina after it's been wiped off. The next step you'll want to do is you'll want to put some wax or polish on top of that, and it will shine it right up right away. Now that you added your patina, and once you've got it all cleaned off, you want to add a coat of wax on it so that way it will shine up very well. These were the embellishments, the overlay, and the patina that I wanted to show you today. Hopefully you find the information useful. If you do, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button, and leave a comment in the comment section of what you found most helpful. With that, take a look at the next video that's coming up on your screen.